looking to answer comments today. I'm just going to, I don't know, riff or rant or, I don't know, verbally vomit some thoughts this morning. Um, a while back, this is going to be a long weave, so to exit if you're in replay, and if you're here live, I'm sorry. But a long time ago, somebody was giving me a hard time about somebody I followed on the YouTube and commented on, and he was, giving me a seriously, you know, hard time over my following of this other YouTuber, or of this YouTuber. I'm not really a YouTuber, but following this YouTuber. Anyway, sorry, all the negative thoughts or negative comments and names he called me were spinning through my head right there. I'm trying to filter all that back into something positive here. And my explanation to him was, and I stand by this, is what I saw in that person, Tim K. He's off of YouTube now, but at the time I started following him, he was, you know, basically a comedic relief on the Harold Balder show. And I wasn't a big Harold Balder fan, but what I saw in Tim is Tim said, look, I want to do this. And he wasn't living the life he wanted to live. He was living I'm not going to even describe it, but it was a public life. He was being very public with his actions and maybe drinking a little too much on camera and creating all kinds of drama off camera. And there were all kinds of people, waiting there to stab him in the back, and not, I'm not saying he didn't deserve it. But what I am saying, and what I did focus on, is he was saying, I'm here, I want to be here. He was saying, I'm here, I want to be here. And you had to listen for it, because most of the time he was just, being the comic relief and having fun. And I'm all for that. And that was probably a very rough season in his life. And I don't know how his life is now, but what I saw is I saw him saying, I'm here, I want to be here. And he was making that climb up the hill. He was making the climb up the hill to a better life, to a better future. And what I realized at my life is I was trying to make that climb, and I'm looking around, and there wasn't anybody in my immediate circle trying to climb that climb. Most everybody in my immediate circle was really, stable and grounded and had, a really amazing life, and they weren't seeking that great change in life. And so I was looking for that online. I was looking for examples of that online, and I'm still always kind of looking at those people who are making those big changes in their life and succeeding. And I look at them with awe and inspiration. And so, I know a few people right now online, and one of them is facing, huge changes in his life, and he's just like running towards it, not blindly, but just, with pure faith. He's like, this happened, wanted to do this, I did this. He's like, now I've got to do that, right? And he's just running at it, full speed ahead. And I look at that with such awe and amazement and inspiration. Another gentleman, he told me 2 years ago, year and a half ago, whatever, I want to live this life. And he created that life, that he manifested that life. He made all the this dry cough won't go away. He made all the choices he needed to create the life he had envisioned. And to me, he's kind of like a superhero in the sense that, he has the ability to create in his mind a picture of what he wants his life to be, and execute it and live that life. And now, it seems like he's questioning whether, he wants to employ that power, that superpower, to, manifest the life he's been thinking about. And, I get the sense he's not really sure if that's the life he wants or not, or whatever. I don't know. But I do know whatever he sets his mind to, he seems to accomplish. And I've met a bunch of other people on YouTube that are like that. And it's just so amazing to me, that people are out there giving us peeks into their life when they're going through these monumental changes. Whether it's Andrea, New Life Albania, or Patrick, retired overseas. There's a new lady, I can't remember her name. I just started following. And she just started YouTube, and she's like, look, I want to retire, and it's not going to work out for me in America. So I'm looking around where to go, and she's in that decision making process. But these are all people looking forward, looking up, right? They're not looking down, they're not looking back, they're not wallowing. They're people looking forward to move forward. And I think that's the important part for me, is I want to have those voices in my head of people who are making changes in their life, because that's what I want. Now, if I just wanted to settle in and retire and walk the same street every day, then that's the voice I would want to put in my head. So I think the real important thing, if you're going to glean anything from listening to me today, it would be figure out what, for me, I wanted to figure out what I wanted, and I wanted to find those voices, and I wanted to put those voices in my head on a regular basis. So I knew a long time ago I wanted change, and so I started listening to all these people that talk about change, and they started becoming the dominant voices in my head. And while I love some of my friends, they're settling down, with kids, or they're settling into, a career, or they're settling into this, and I'm not in that mode to hunker down and grind on a 10-year path, right? I'm not in that, let me grind this out for another 10 years, go to the park every day. I don't have that time left, and I'm not on that path. So I had to find people walking the same path in life as me and put those voices in my head, even more than people I would consider my closest friends. And it's hard. It's really, really hard. But it's proven effective for me. I mean, I'm doing things, you know, I and I say this all the time. I'm doing things I never believed I would be able to do. And I'm not special. I'm not, gifted with these powers. I'm not, I'm not like, I don't have a proven track record of success. So it's really strange to me how just adding these people to my head, adding these voices to my head, has really emboldened me and empowered me, that even when I make stupid mistakes, even when I make horrible decisions, I'm able to recover from it, rebound, and move on. One of the best examples I had was, I was putting together a little travel bag. It was going to be my carry-on so I had my laptop in there. I wanted the perfect backpack, and I was all into it's got to be the perfect gear. It's got to be the perfect setup for me, right? Had my laptop, everything was in there. I was leaving on a trip soon. I'm in a rental car. A guy breaks the window. It's a long story, but I pull up to a coffee shop at like 5 in the morning or something, 5:30. They just opened, and put the bag in the back seat and down behind the passenger seat. And I come out, and there's glass all over the ground on the hood on the car, and I'm like, I'm kind of dazed and confused. I just bought a coffee cup, that I was going to gift to somebody, and bought my coffee, and I'm just like, what's going on here, right? Did I miss this going in? And then I look up, and the window to the car is broken. There went my GoPro, there went this, there went that, right? All the GoPro accessories, everything was gone. And I got mad and frustrated for about 30 minutes. And then it's like, okay, into problem solving mode. And I was able to shift into problem solving mode because of the voices I had in my head at that time were all about, don't dwell on emotional shit, right? Don't dwell on emotional shit that you can't really fix. So I can get all emotional and angry about it, but I quickly went through the scenario. Okay, I get emotional and angry. I know how to do this. I could, embed myself here for weeks and track down the crackhead who broke the window, set up a bait, find him, follow him to his tent, and then what, right? And what good does that serve me? I'm going this way. Why do I want to go back and deal with this guy? I don't. If it were my community, I live there or something, like, then it gets into like, hey, I need to protect myself from future instances with this guy, right? But none of that applied, right? Everything about my future did not involve me being in that city, again. So best answer for me And so I took a bunch of money I had saved for my trip and went and bought the same backpack, went and bought a brand new GoPro, went and bought this, replaced it all, and sacrificed, a lot of my trip. But I built their bag right back and just moved on with life. And I had that ability, I had that strength. Sorry, I don't know what it is with this dry cough, but I had that ability and that strength because of the voices in my head. And they weren't feeding me negative directions. They weren't feeding me negative cycles. They weren't, endorsing my previous behaviors to go and, seek retribution or anything like that, right? That's not really an accurate thing. They weren't endorsing my, you got to do this attitude, right? It was more like, get things done, right? Life is in front of you, not behind you. Behind you is a lesson learned, and hopefully, you can take those lessons and apply them to the future. But at the time, I was very focused on life is in my future, and I wouldn't have been able to maintain that focus if I didn't have the right voices in my head. So when I talk about some of these YouTubers I follow, it's a real, I don't think they look in the mirror enough to see just how special and unique they are. And that kind of frustrates me because most of them are very timid and humble about their experiences, and they don't want to shoulder the responsibility of being super successful in a way. I'm not saying that in a negative way. I'm just saying that's one way to look at it. But they are far more successful than they give themselves credit for on a regular basis. And I admire that as well. But for me, the lesson learned is the more scrutinizing and picky I am about the voices I put in my head, the better my life gets. Raises my level of responsibility that, you can't run with a pack and be always behind the pack, right? And I'm not trying to run with these people. I'm just trying to follow them down the trail, right? Because most of the people I follow, they're, running at 10x my speed, right? But they're going in directions I can go. I can definitely follow them down the path. I can definitely learn from them. I can be watching them up ahead and go, okay, they did this. I don't want to do that. I want to do that, right? And all those things. And the key for me is not to find somebody too far ahead that is making decisions and choices that are just out of my, reality. It's not part of my reality. Talking to somebody about buying or listening to somebody about buying, 100,000 in Bitcoin and trading it in a Forex and this and that. That's not my wheelhouse. That's not where I live and reside, right? I live and reside in the dollars and cents, not the hundreds and thousands of dollars, right? But anyway, voices in your head matter, and voices in my head matter, and being very selective about who those voices are and who I give time to is very important to me. And it's helped me more than I think anybody really appreciates. And that's an interesting thing to me, because the more I realize that, the more I scrutinize my time, and I scrutinize who has access to my ears, and I scrutinize even what TV shows, what ads come on. There are ads on YouTube that when they come on, I just turn off YouTube, because it's like they're just going to come on for 10 more times, and I don't want that bullshit in my head. I don't want that little lyric, that little jingle in my head. And because it's toxic, right? And learning to identify what's toxic and cut it out immediately is really important to me. There are people, I'm a big fan of listen to everybody and make your own decision, but there are some people, they're not getting in my ears. I'm not going to listen to them. And they may have something wonderful to say, but they've already proven to me with enough of what they said that I don't need to be listening to them. And I'm a big believer. If I'm that way to you, tune me out. Go away, right? If I'm not, you know, I don't know. But I'm not trying to do anything other than, share my experiences, and, I'm not trying to bring you over to the church or anything like that. I'm just trying to say this is what works for me. And part of this is I'm probably going to go back in 2 or 3 or 5 years and watch this again and go, okay, I need to get grounded again. I need to go back to this. I need to go back to that. And the more I talk about what works for me, the more I can revisit it, and the more I can, keep moving forward and not taking that step sideways or that step backwards. Well, that's my thoughts for today. Hope you have a great day. My day looks to be a little turbulent, but I will get it sorted out and go to bed with a smile on my face. Take care.